Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited about today's video. Today we're going to be speaking about how we can leverage user-generated content in our brands, how we can use user-generated content in order to earn more of our buyers' trust, to gain more brand awareness, and obviously to also get more sales. In today's video, I have the amazing Christina Passmore, who's also a good friend of mine. She's going to be sharing a presentation with us. Also in her agency, they offer user-generated content. She's going to be teaching us how we can use it both on Amazon and off Amazon, and the different ways we can use it, where we can use it, how to get user-generated content, and so much more. If you're new here, my name is Sharon Evan, and I am an Amazon seller. I'm also an Amazon coach. I do one-on-one mentoring with sellers. I also help people to develop their brands from scratch and also help people on an Amazon level as well. If you're in need of coaching, I'm going to be putting a link to my website down below. And also, if you're new here, please do make sure to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll also put Christina's details below in the description as well. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Welcome back to the channel, to the
Thanks so much
podcast.
for having me. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. Nice to see you too.
So yeah, we're going to be speaking about user-generated content, but before we start, and also user-generated content and why it's so important for brands to be using it, and you can use it in many different avenues, not just social media. So Christina, for anyone who doesn't know you, could you please give a quick intro for who you are and what you're about and do?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm actually a former Amazon seller. I basically started selling on Amazon in 2019, scaled my brand to 6 figures in under 8 months with, of course, your coaching. And at that time, I actually was also flying. I was a flight attendant for roughly almost 14 years, and I pivoted into helping other e-commerce sellers scale their businesses with all things Amazon listing optimization, content marketing, and social media marketing. And still to that day, that's exactly what I do. So yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. So we're going to Christina's going to be sharing her screen now.
But let's just talk a little bit about really what's the big deal with UGC, because UGC is actually nothing new. UGC has been around for a while, but we've really seen this like framed and called UGC really. So basically we're seeing a massive decline in the trust of influencer marketing. We're seeing on channels like TikTok, especially, where influencers are maybe losing some trust of their audience because there's such an inundation of influencer marketing. So people are kind of flocking to UGC because right now in 2023, it's seen as one of the more trusted forms of content available. And basically, at a time where brands are really, striving to kind of like relate and connect with their audience, that's why UGC has become so popular. So also sifting through the amount of content that's available online is a little bit challenging to discover what is really the most genuine and authentic. So these are all just reasons why there's such a push for UGC. We also, we know as marketers that UGC can actually yield a very high conversion rate right now. Some say up to 4 to 5x or 5 times. So with that in mind, we know that as Amazon sellers, or former Amazon sellers, that, people purchasing on Amazon are ready to buy market. So when they see relatable content, they're more inclined to purchase. And that's why UGC is such a great advantage, in particular for Amazon sellers right now. So I guess the general question that I often get, well, like, what is UGC? And really, UGC, user-generated content, is just a blanket term for any kind of original or brand-specific content. And it can be created from anybody, really. It can be created from customers, brand fans, and then it can be published across social media, your website, or Amazon listing. It can include videos, still images, testimonials, unboxing, just basically any type of content. And so the real difference between UGC and influencer marketing is that, you're not really paying someone thousands of dollars to promote and advertise. It's just their kind of personal experience and relationship with your brand and your product.
Can I just chip in for 1 second?
Sure.
So sometimes it could be that you didn't even ask the person to create content, that they just created the content. There's a brand that I've been working with from day one. They're called Slant Board Guy, and the only reason I'm mentioning them is all their products are patented, so no one even try. Anyway, and their entire social media is just user generated content. It's not, they're just it's people that are using so it's an exercise brand, and it's just customers of theirs that have been taking videos of themselves doing certain types of exercises using their products and posting it on social media and tagging them, and we've just been repurposing and reusing that. And they're not necessarily, there are lots of like big influencers and celebrities that use their products as well, but more than half of the content is just normal day-to-day people that purchase their stuff, and they're not getting paid, they haven't received a free product. It's just, that's like just hardcore user generated content where it's just raving fans, people that love the brand. So it's not always necessarily that, they've received anything for it. Sometimes it's just because they really love the product, they'll go in and post about it.
Exactly. Yeah. The more authentic it is too, really, the better it is, obviously, for your brand and your community, because people kind of jump on that bandwagon and think to themselves, like, I want to become a part of that. I want to try that slant board that I see on all these people post, like not just influencers, but just regular people, because they see themselves. Right. So that's 100%. That's great. Yeah. So then these are just a few reasons. We've kind of touched on this now, but really, like, why would you choose UGC? The biggest reason is relatability and also authenticity, as we talked about. It's really trusted by the general population more. I'd say more so than influencer marketing right now, really. Not to say that influencer marketing isn't effective, it is, but it's definitely, UGC is more relatable, more authentic, extremely affordable. I mean, as e-commerce sellers, we know what the costs are, rising Amazon fees. There's just so much that goes into building your e-commerce business that you don't really think about, but UGC content is literally so affordable. I can't stress that enough. And then accessibility, I often have Amazon sellers come to me and they're like, where do I get this UGC stuff? And I'm like, it's literally everywhere, in your social media platforms. All of social media platforms today are SEO platforms, so they're search engines. So you can go into the search bar of TikTok or Instagram and type in the words UGC content, UGC creator, and oftentimes you will get people selling courses because the sale of UGC has also kind of become popular. But you will actually be able to find UGC just over these social media platforms. So widely accessible, easy to get your hands on. Google's a great place as well. And as I said, just super, super accessible, sorry. And then adaptable. There's so many things that you can do with one piece of content. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, because I always want to encourage people to get contracts for any content they're purchasing online. But as long as you have permission from the content creator, you can repurpose this content across multiple different channels and platforms. One still image can really do you in a multi-channel approach, really. So it's really, really adaptable. Okay, so let's talk about like why UGC right now, and talk about what the shift has been with like shoppers in general. And we know that shoppers are really no longer impressed by pushy marketing, like the clickbait stuff, all that kind of stuff is over and done with. Shoppers are really, and this is something I talk to Amazon sellers a lot about in Amazon listing optimization especially, is that shoppers are really looking for connection and interaction with other people, including brands. They really want to feel a certain type of way from the content that they're seeing and the products that they're buying. And they're not convinced by fake reviews and contrived content anymore. We've seen this on Amazon. We've all gone through this phase of exposure on Amazon where we know there's lots of fake reviews, and customers are not stupid to that anymore. They're absolutely aware. And they don't want to be passive. They want to actually actively participate, and they want to find brands that their values feel aligned in. And so that they can really connect with them. So those are kind of like the three drivers, I say, of success for e-commerce brands right now: is connection, conversion, and clarity. Those are the three biggest C's that people really need to be paying attention to, and UGC helps drive those. This is kind of an interesting story. I actually purchased this UGC content when I owned my beauty brand. So I purchased this image from a local girl. I just found her on Instagram and asked her if she'd be interested in creating content for me. She really isn't an influencer. And so she created this beautiful photo that I was able to translate basically across all my content. I used it in Instagram, I used it in Facebook. I don't think I used it on my website at the time, but I did use it in my A+ content on Amazon. So just a great example of, how accessible UGC really is. Let's talk for a minute about where you can actually use UGC on Amazon, because I think the obvious ones sellers are really aware of, but there's some placements that are not so obvious. So we'll skip through the obvious ones first. So the 7 Amazon images, I really highly encourage sellers to take a pause here and start using UGC for content images like before and afters. A big driver of success in your Amazon images is transformational content. And what that means is that when a shopper is looking at your images, not only do they A, see themselves in your content, but B, right away by image number 3, they see the transformation that they're going to experience from purchasing. And UGC is one of the best ways to do that. And then, of course, your product video. This is another example of a video that I purchased for UGC for my own beauty brand. And this video I actually use not only in my social media, but I use it on my Amazon storefront. So, and this is a complete mini tutorial video, basically. So you can use your product video in your, where your images are, but you can also repurpose this and use it across different stages of your Amazon listing. There's, I think, up to, I could be wrong, but roughly 6 places for videos in your product detail page, all the way from your images down to, the questions and answers. There's a slew of different places that you can upload video content now.
So I just wanted to say regarding the 7 images, and one of the ways that we do it, one of the ways that we do it is we create a collage. So a collage, it could have 4, it could have 10 like images, for example, of real people, real user-generated content, and it'll have something like, something to do with that either sold thousands of units or thousands of happy customers, or something along, take it from our customers or whatever it may be. And then what I love about this video is like a proper product video can cost thousands of dollars. And I still think people should have proper product videos. But when it's not within your budget, okay, and even when it is within your budget, still also having a user-generated content you should have as well as. But let's just say you can't even get a proper product video right now because it's, I don't know, you don't have $2,000 or $3,000 to do it because you may need multiple models or whatever it may be. Getting a user-generated video is extremely affordable. Do you remember how much you paid for the video on the screen?
This was $50. I can't remember how long it is. I think it was 60 seconds or just under, because it had to fit. The biggest place that I wanted this for was Instagram, because I had a huge following on Instagram, a loyal following. So that's what this video was designed for, but it was literally $50. So, super affordable. And some of the content that these creators can create is like the level of content is really, really great. It's not necessarily poor quality. Now, I totally agree with you about having a professional product video, because a professional product video really showcases the product in a different way, so I agree that that is necessary, but you're absolutely right. If you don't have that budget, especially when you first start selling, leverage something like UGC in important placements, and then work towards getting, a professional video created when you can.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's like you said, and what this entire presentation is about, a lot of the time it's a lot more trustworthy.
Yep, and that too, obviously. You were talking about showing a collage of images, and I liked how you mentioned compelling copy. That's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But when customers stop and scroll through this content on Amazon, not only are they pulled by the words that slow the scroll, but they're also looking for themselves. So a collage is a really great way to do that, because you're showing multiple different people enjoying and loving your brand and product. And so that's a really great point. So other places for UGC content is the Amazon brand story. I'm so excited about this section of A+ content right now, because as a copywriter and storyteller, this is one of the best places that brands can really articulate like what their mission is and their values. What I like to call that really important brand foundational messaging can go in this section, but Also a really great area for UGC content, you know, highlight some of the benefits of your product here. It's, you know, really, really a great spot to highlight some of this user-generated content. And then another favorite of mine and still widely underutilized by Amazon sellers is Amazon posts. And we'll get into the repurposing of UGC content a little bit later, but Amazon posts are basically kind of like a little form of social media on Amazon. So you can have a UGC creator create some of these images for you, upload them to your Amazon post section, and then repurpose them across channel. And then we talked about A+ content or the Amazon storefront, you know, video content in those areas, but also your banners in your A+ section. I really love to have a banner towards the end. Now that we have the brand story, so towards the end that talks about like trusted by thousands or something to really showcase that your brand is really well renowned and well known. And that's a really great place for UGC content as well. And then Amazon Inspire is kind of a new feature within the Amazon shopping app. I think it's kind of like their take on TikTok from what I understand. So why not leverage some of the qualifying posts from your Amazon posts in this place? Again, like great way to repurpose content as well. So great, we're going to talk about repurposing user-generated content. By the way, this is the UGC creator. I have linked her at the end of this presentation. You guys can check out her profile on Fiverr. I vetted her, I've worked with her. She's really great. But so you can see in the first image, it's just a still image. She's really highlighting earphones in this photo. And so this photo could easily go on a website, or it could go in blog images. It could go in a website video.
Let's just really quickly explain for the people listening on the podcast. So at the end of the day, what we have on the screen is we've got 3 different images. It's the exact same image, just with a tiny little change to it, whether it's been like the image has been mirrored, or they've just added, what do you call it?
Some text and infographics.
Yeah, text and infographics to it in order to repurpose it according to, you know, wherever it is that you're posting it on. Sorry, continue.
Right. So that's something that's really important with repurposing and also just content, social media, is that we really want to make sure that we're, you know, repurposing in the best way possible. So we wouldn't necessarily take an image that's a testimonial from Instagram, and, you know, we wouldn't necessarily post that on our, say, Amazon listing. So the first image is just a plain image. There's no text, no nothing. And we're just articulating that you can use this on your website or in your blog or in some of your video content, etc. And then the second image is the exact same image, but we've now added a mini testimonial. And so this can be used on your social media content as well as your Amazon posts. And then finally, the third image, we repurposed the exact same image, but we've added, this is just a demonstration, but we've added some infographics and some compelling copy. And then you could then use this image on your Amazon listing. So repurposing UGC is so easy to do. Just pay attention to the channel that you're repurposing to. That's kind of my best tip for repurposing.
And then, of course, you can also repurpose the videos.
Yep, so, repurpose the videos. Yeah, you can also splice them and cut them up. Yeah, you can use them. Exactly. Yep. So let's talk about off Amazon. We kind of went through this a little bit, but in a little more detail. So we know UGC can be used on social media channels, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. On your website, images and videos, in your intros and explainers, especially explainers. That's a really great place for UGC. And then your blog images, anything to do with blog content is a good place, because people get bored reading blogs if they don't see something that kind of grabs them. And then another one that people don't necessarily think of is frequently asked questions and case studies. Why not use UGC content in these areas? You know, show your brand fans actually using or loving your brand in some way, shape, or form. How much does UGC cost? I love this image of Kim just throwing money around. You know, for Amazon sellers, this is a really common question, is like, how much is this going to cost me? The truth is that there's no set pricing. So I've seen UGC as low as $15 for one image. I've also seen it hundreds of dollars. So keep in mind that the large majority of UGC creators or freelancers or contractors, they have their own pricing. It will depend on things like, you know, the length of video, whether or not they're editing and adding text and music. It really depends on what they're creating for you. So I've seen images as low as $15. I've seen them high as several $100s. Videos are obviously going to be more expensive because there's typically more time involved, and the quality will also increase the price. And then lastly, keep in mind ad content can definitely be more expensive because you're using these images and this content for the purpose of a sale. So, a creator may have a different price point for content that's used on Amazon because they know that you're using it, to sell. So just keep those things in mind, but obviously do your research and check out different creators to get a good gauge of pricing. Where can you access UGC? Great question. Really, as I said, social media is a great place to begin. Use these social media search bars as they're intended, because these are search engine optimized. So, type into the search bar where are UGC content creator, different keywords that will help you populate creators that are selling UGC. So that's the first place that I really recommend looking. The nice thing is too, is that when they're producing content, you can kind of see their style. Like you can kind of get a sense for the creator right over their social media profiles before purchasing. Freelance sites, Fiverr and Upwork. I recommend certain profiles on these sites, but as e-commerce brand owners, if you don't have the time to invest in really sifting through some of those sites, I caution you, because the quality of work can be challenging. Dealing with freelancers can also be difficult. And then lastly, UGC agencies. There's actually a network of agencies that sell UGC, but they also manage the entire process for sellers who maybe don't have the time to really worry about contracts and all the kind of like fine details. An agency will really help you navigate the entire process. So what to look out for? I love this section because this is really important and something that I think, is a little bit overlooked when purchasing UGC. The first thing, and this note, it just like warms my heart because it's so important for content marketing in general. Any type of content marketing, aside your goal planning, this should be the first thing that you're doing, and that's really figuring out your target audience. So if you're not considering your target audience with UGC, you can actually end up doing more harm than good, because if you're not representing the right audience in those images, you can end up making people not feel related to your content. You can end up making people feel not inspired by your brand. So take a pause, really figure out who your target audience is, and then also what resonates with them the most. And you can do this through market research. And that means, going to social media channels, doing some social listening, Google Trends, all of those great places, and really invest in knowing your target audience. Restricted on Amazon. Sorry.
A really good example for that is, so how what do you call, sorry, I just have to say, if anyone see me, if you're watching this and you see me yawning, I love Christina. It's nothing to do. It's 10, it's probably like 11:15 at night, my time. And we had to re-record this because we already recorded it and it didn't record properly. So if it's, first of all, sorry. And second of all, my brain's half working, half not. So Christina's like gotta, take over most of this for me so that I don't have to think too much. But Christina, what do you call when women today, I've just forgotten, I'm having a blackout, when women are buying products like Skims for, to make themselves look skinnier? What's it called? Not a waist, like
body slimming?
Body slimming, like bodysuits type things.
I feel like I should know what this is because I have them.
Yeah, I've just forgotten the name. I don't know why, but let's just call it a bodysuit. So a good example is having a bodysuit that that most of your clients that are buying it are whatever, let's just say size 14, size 16, but you're using a size 6 girl to show a before and after. I can also say, as someone, for the last 2 years, unfortunately, who's put on quite a bit of weight, that even I've looked at these types of products, and then you see what is user-generated content. It's not influencers, it's not big influencers. And you see in these ads, it's like someone that when I watch it, I'm like, oh, it's so not relatable. Like watching this video of this chick who's so tiny and doesn't even need this product. And that's where you can do more damage because it's so not relatable. It's so fake, right? Whereas if I actually see myself in that buyer avatar, where it's someone that, let's just say their body looks similar to mine, etc., and I can see actually when she's wearing a before and after, it makes me trust the brand more. So totally. That I'm super passionate about buyer avatars. I think it's like the most important thing ever. But
I learned from the best. Yeah,
but,
I think too that this is such a great. This is such a great conversation because I think as e-commerce brand builders, we tend to get down this like tunnel of thinking that content has to be perfect. If I don't have the best looking people and the most perfect this and the most perfect that, but we know that there's a massive shift in audiences today. You know, audiences today are actually craving authentic content. So when you do what you just, gave an example of, which is post someone that not actually is your ideal target, you actually dissuade your audience. You really make them feel a little bit bad, to be honest, because they're then like, oh, well, maybe this brand isn't for me. Like maybe I don't measure up to this brand. So the target audience is just such an important step. I know it sounds like something so minor, but I really don't think that Amazon sellers are really slowing the roll enough with figuring out the target.
I mean, if they work with me, they do, but no, I'm
kidding.
True. You know what? It's an ABC. It's a step one with me, but yeah.
And it's the same thing with social media. When they work with me with social media, they really notice, a difference. We're targeting a very specific avatar on social media. So the next one is restricted content. Very important conversation for Amazon sellers. Of course, we know as an Amazon listing agency that there's all kinds of trigger words and content that, is not allowed in an listing. So for example, if you're going to create an image using UGC or a video and you've allowed the content creator to kind of edit some of that content themselves, be very mindful that they know what words to avoid. Now we know that, there's no hard rule book about trigger words on Amazon because we know bots scan content. And so what can be triggered in one section of a listing might not be triggered in another, but just use your best judgment and be mindful of this when creating this type of content. I'm going to do contracts and copyright last because you have a really great example. Low quality is another. This is kind of a big issue, guys, for UGC, because as I said, anyone can purchase this. But that means that you're often dealing with contractors and freelancers, and pricing is very variable. So you can, if you purchase a $15 image, like what would you expect to get for that price point? You may not really get the best quality. So low quality is an issue that you need to be mindful of. And then lack of process. People that know me know that I am huge on process. I have a pretty stringent process in my business, just like you do. And that's just so that we can always keep delivery at a certain level. But when you're dealing with contractors and freelancers, and of course not all, if freelancers are watching this, I know many of you work, you're owning businesses and working so hard to ensure delivery is great, but there can be a lack of process, a lack of structure, and that means late deliveries. And as an e-commerce seller, sometimes you're on a timeline. Like when you have a launch planned, you do not have time to be chasing a freelancer to deliver content for you. So those are things to just really be mindful of. And then lastly, hugely important is contracts. I know we just think oh, UGC, why would I need a contract? But let's have Sharon weigh in on why that's important.
Yeah. So I'm going to use SlantBoard as an example again. So it's a brand I've been working with from almost the beginning of their journey. They're a really big brand off Amazon. And at the end of the day, there was a certain person, which we won't get into names here, but that was consistently creating content using their products and their exercise content. Now, this person at the time wasn't really an influencer. They were just, they weren't an influencer. They were, let's just use it. I'm just going to make up, stop making up a scenario. I'm just going to try and simplify it. Let's just say that they were a personal trainer and they had a Instagram and they were creating content on that Instagram. They're not an influencer. They're, a personal trainer trying to get clients through Instagram. And, at the end of the day, this person was using their equipment in almost all of their video, all of their content. Fast forward 2 years later, this person has over 1.2 million followers, and has become somewhat a celebrity in his niche. Multi-millionaire, creates these huge programs, lots of celebrities, have had them, Joe Rogan had him on the podcast, etc. And at the end of the day, there was some bad blood in between. I won't get into why, but there weren't contracts in place on what we were allowed to use and what not. And that creates a problem, because sometimes you may be not necessarily paying someone, you may be wanting to use, let's just say, content from someone who at this point, they're not an influencer. They just created some great content for you. And that content, then 1 year later, they come back and say to you, hey, you remember when you used this and this, I didn't get any compensation from it. And at the end of the day, you owe me this and this amount. And it's a gray area. Like, I've had conversations with my lawyers from 𝗖𝗢𝗢𝗏𝗧𝗏 from 𝗕𝗩𝗘𝗕𝗢𝗏, and it's a gray area as well. So avoid this from the very beginning. Have contracts in place. It's very similar to how we have contracts in place, you know, with purchase order agreements, etc., with our Chinese suppliers or any suppliers. It's very, very similar. Now, the thing is, a lot of people may say, well, you know, when's the right time to reach out and say, hey, can we get a contract in place? Because sometimes it can be too formal. So your contract, and this is actually advice that I got from a lawyer. So I'm not a lawyer, but this is advice I got from a lawyer. And she said to me, you can make a contract that's super, super simple and doesn't look like it came from a lawyer, that it just came, and really make it where, you know, this is just, you can even sometimes, I don't know, lie. I'm sorry to say that, but you can say, you know, we've just had some issues in the past, or come up and say, you know, we just want to take care of you and us, whatever. And so or it's company policy or whatever it may be, and say, we really need you to sign this. We're really looking forward to working with you. We hope it's okay. You know, it depends on your relationship that you have. But the reason you get a contract, it's an investment in the future for not going through shit in the future, where someone can come back to you and be like, I didn't give you permission to use this. You know, I told you you can only use it on Instagram. You used it in other places, whatever it may be. Having a contract in place, it just makes sure that, you know, none of that shit happens in the future. And sometimes, and I swear, you won't think about it when you're small. But 2 years later, when you're like a $10 million brand, and that nobody became somebody, you know, using TikTok and Instagram, there can be some bad blood. So you need to be careful.
Well, and I think you have to think about the content creator too, right? Like what you mentioned was this person went from being a small kind of unknown content creator to really 1 million following is a business at that point. So of course he's going to look, or she, whoever is going to look back through that content and think like, was I compensated? Because like people are making money off of that content. So I think the contract conversation is just so important. And I know you mentioned about people kind of being apprehensive or feeling like it can affect the relationship. And that is true. And I like the way that you kind of pose having those conversations. But, you know, ultimately the relationship will deteriorate worse off without a contract. So always get a contract. You know, UGC creators that I've worked with and vetted with, they have this content already. They want to protect themselves too, right? So really spend the time and get a contract in place. And the other thing is, just lightly, I'll touch on this, is copyright, especially on Amazon. Copyright infringement can have your whole listing removed. Been there, done that. When I was selling on the platform, somebody kind of caught content, and you know, this is like a huge issue. So you do not want to have a UGC creator claim copyright and have your content removed. Just avoid all of these issues from the beginning and get a contract in place. It's too important to skip.
There is something I do want to say on that note. And now, again, I'm not a lawyer. You need to check what I'm saying, but this is as far as what I know from social media. The minute that, because sometimes you may have just a raving fan who loves your brand, and they've posted something on Instagram and they've tagged your brand, and then the photo, it's them with your product, and you didn't even ask them, it's just a raving fan. Like, that's the best user generated content in the world. As far as I know, legally, because they've tagged you, you are allowed to repost that as long as you also tag them back and give them credit. Okay,
credit is so important. Yes,
exactly. In that case specifically, technically, you don't need to reach out to them and say, hey, am I allowed to use this photo? Let's make a contract. You don't need to be now creating, 500 contracts with random people. You know what I mean? So there's also, but you can put that on that same platform. So if they tagged you on Instagram, you can repost that on Instagram and give them credit, but you can't, as far as I know, okay, legally, as far as I know, you can't then go and copy that and put that on your Amazon listing without getting permission from them. You've taken it off that platform. You're not giving them credit on your, so you therefore, as far as I know, and in those cases, I'm going to say you can get away with not creating a contract when it's on the same platform. And it's really is just a random person who's tagged your brand. I don't think you need to, go and create, this isn't, I'm not talking influencers. I'm talking.
This is kind of a different conversation just about credit in general. I totally see what you're saying, but about credit in particular, especially on social media channel, guys, always give credit. I know it's like always tag them. If you have the time, reach out to them, let them know, most people are happy to see their content repurposed for the most part, but always give credit. Yeah. So wise, Sharon.
What do you thanks. What do you think about the, not having to make contracts with hundreds of small random people?
Yeah, I don't want to speak too much about legal because I'm not a lawyer. Do not take this as financial advice or legal advice. Take this with a grain of salt, but here's my approach in social media marketing is that we always reach out to someone. I'll always send a message and say, can I repurpose this content? Can I tag you in this content? Can I use this content in my story or wherever else? And to date, I have not had anyone say no. They want to be credited though. They, repurpose that image in my Instagram story for a client. They want
But is that then followed with, oh, let's make a contract, or 90% of the time, no?
No, I've never had a contract. You're right. Yeah, never had a contract. But without credit, that's when you're opening yourself up to issue because you've basically stolen their content, right? So getting credit is like just so important.
You absolutely have to give them credit. My point was on that, it makes more sense to get contracts when you've actually paid for it. When it's someone that, or if you ask if you can use it off of Instagram or TikTok, wherever they've done it. But when it's on that channel.
Yeah, I have it in my own personal beauty brand. Somebody would create a video just because they loved the product so much. It started off as UGC, but then I looked at that content and I was like, damn, I want to use this as an unboxing on my website or my Amazon listing. Then I'm looking at getting a contract in place. Then I'm looking at kind of protecting them just as myself. But what you said is accurate as far as I know. So yeah.
Awesome.
So now we're going to have a fun conversation about metrics and data. I feel like the Amazon community and this is a great thing. You should be focused on metrics. You should be focused on data. But I have a different spin on this because social media marketing, especially Amazon sellers, are so ROI focused. They want to know what is the return on investment that you can guarantee me? And I will never guarantee anyone an ROI on any content marketing because there is so many variables that can affect content and these outcomes. So these are some things that you can track and some ways that you can kind of get this data to analyze it. But I just want to preface by saying that, we had this conversation when we first taped this podcast about the fact that sometimes these metrics with user-generated content and social media marketing
sometimes they mean jack shit.
What's that?
Sometimes they mean jack shit. Sometimes they don't mean anything.
Yeah, and sometimes it's massively about brand awareness. And I know people kind of dismiss that, thinking brand awareness, who needs that? But guys, the more touch points you have with an audience and the more that you connect with them, we like to talk about this I get so passionate about this conversation, but we like to talk about this about pulling people into the marketing funnel. So imagine Instagram is a giant marketing funnel and you're just trying to draw awareness from the new people and pull them into the funnel. They resonate with your content, they relate with your brand, they feel wow, this is making me feel connected. They may not purchase instantly on one platform. They may purchase later on when they see a few posts or they go to your website. They may be inspired to purchase then. So just remember that some of the data analysis, while very important, is not always the primary driver. It's not always the focus that you should be focusing on. Brand awareness is really a massive component of your brand. So the first
sorry, I just feel like you can never go wrong with user-generated content. Like, there is absolutely no logical sense how it wouldn't impact your brand positively in any way. User-generated content,
yeah,
unless you did really bad work and you
exactly.
like, you know, for example, you're selling anti-aging products for like 50-year-old women, and all of your UGC is like 20-year-olds, and you know, their skin's perfect, and you've done a really bad job at identifying who your buyer is. But as long as you've not done that, your UGC is really good content that's relatable. It just gives your brand credibility, relatability. It makes you trustworthy. And therefore, these are things that trying to track that, like, I remember we had a similar conversation when we originally recorded this, but it's very difficult to be able to really track that in multiple places. So yeah, sorry, continue.
And people will say that they can, and that's great. But I think we're talking about a larger conversation of like, brand awareness is such a massive component of building a brand, building a following, and also building a loyal following. So sometimes, just as you said, these metrics aren't necessarily the driving force. But with any metrics, we obviously want to identify your goals. Like, what are you really hoping to achieve with UGC? Are you really just kind of like, is it a content filler? Some people fully admit they don't have enough content. They buy UGC just to get it out there. That's okay. That's brand awareness. But, you know, sometimes it might be for the purpose of driving sales, etc. So with any metrics, establish your goals first. The second point would be track your insights, you know, like track, when we're talking about Amazon listings, for example, we actually would do a complete audit. So we would look at the in terms of like the SEO and the copy and the images, and really audit every section to see what is, you know, performing well, what isn't performing well, and we would track that over time. We might do some split testing to see if the one before and after image that we created with UGC was effective as another image. So there are things that you can do, but tracking and analyzing, and then optimizing to the point of like rinse and repeat. And that's the third step. Really the goal with content, social media marketing, content marketing, you know, the long-term goal is ROI, yes, but we want to be able to figure out what is high performing content, what's doing really well across these different channels. And then we want to replicate that, because we know that that is a driver for success for your audience. So monitor and optimize at that point. And another good point that I want to make about UGC in particular and metrics is that sometimes these creators might cross-post the content on their own channels. That's something that could be agreed upon in your contract. They might just even do it on their own. But in those cases, you may have to ask them to take some screenshots of the insights. Like, pretty well all social media channels have insights that actually tell you detailed analysis of things like, you know, your reach, your engagement, impressions, your demographics, even like the age of your audience. Instagram has a huge insight area. So you could just ask them to take a screenshot of the insight so that you could look at it and then maybe review it a few months later. But it does mean that you have to kind of follow up with the content creator if they post your content.
I feel like there's a fine line on this specific subject between user-generated content and influencer marketing.
There is.
Because there's a fine line there, because you can ask for these metrics, etc., from influencers. Asking from like someone random, it's a little bit harder. But what I do want to say in this, obviously a way that you can track it is, let's just say use user-generated content to create video ads, not specifically just Amazon. I'm also talking about, you know, Google, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be. Obviously there, you know, you can have multiple versions of different types of user-generated content. Then you can see which ones perform best, with what people, what do they look like? What are they, whatever. Another way to obviously with your third point, monitor and optimize. Obviously, if you've used you know, let's just say someone of Fiverr to create user-generated content where they do an unboxing video, okay, for, let's just say, a gift box. Let's just say you have a gift box brand, you sell a gift box, and they did a really good job on your first one, on your first gift box, then obviously it's a no-brainer. Go back and use also the same person for the next, for the next gift box, if it makes sense on a buyer avatar level. So obviously those are also ways that, of course, that's not jack shit, like I said in the earlier,
Right.
that is stuff that you can monitor and have a look at. But a lot of the time when you're repurposing, well, not repurposing, for example, with Slanted Guy, half of their Instagram really is user-generated content.
Exactly.
And it's giving them content, it's keeping them relevant on Instagram, consistently putting up those things. It's hard to 100% track that, because you don't know what the full ROI on that, on that content was at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. I think just easing into the discomfort of that for sellers. I know it's like, I know the purpose of business is obviously sales and growth, obviously, but I think just easing into the discomfort sometimes of understanding what brand awareness really does. It takes you from unknown to recognized and trusted. Like, there's so many reasons why brand awareness just on its own is tremendously beneficial. I just want to touch on one last tip here for tracking, but also just like a way to use UGC. I just was reminded of the brand referral bonus program. So if any sellers are actually leveraging email marketing, please tell me you are. Email marketing can yield a high ROI, actually, of up to like 6%, some say. So email marketing is tremendously important for your brands. But this brand referral bonus link, you can actually, put an image in your email marketing, link it, and then I think on certain categories, save up to 10% back from Amazon, but also you can get some data analysis right from Amazon with that link. So that's just another tip that you could try leveraging UGC content to get some data and see how many sales are actually going, throughout your email marketing campaigns. So this is just a couple contacts that I wanted to leave sellers with. And as I mentioned, you can download this guide by going to ChristinaInc.com, go to the resources tab, and then it's the last option, free guides. And I vetted these creators. I personally have worked with them. Sharon knows Victoria personally. She's available on Fiverr. Her work is outstanding. She's very professional, and same with Kendall. You can email her directly. And I like to tell people to, like, pricing wise, I start at the $50 to $60 range for images. I think that's a good price point for still images. So yeah.
Awesome. Is that it?
I think that's the end.
Okay. All right. Do you want to stop sharing for a
Sure.
second so that we can?
Perfect. Thanks.
All
Thanks
right.
for saying
No, awesome. Great podcast, great content, super, super important. Highly recommend that everyone look further into how they can use user-generated content and fit that to make sense in their brand, however that may look for them.
Mm-hmm.
Christina, if anyone wants to reach out to you, you guys do not just, you do listing, you write listings, you do social media management. You also have added UGC content to your many things in your agency that you do.
Right. Yeah.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you, what is the best place for them to?
Sure. So you can email me at hello@ChristinaInc.com. You can also find me across social channels using the handle Christina Inc. Content Marketing. We actually have some really fire UGC pricing out right now. It's like $30 an image. It's high quality. And we take care of the process for you. So you can find that under my services tab, under content marketing and user-generated content services. So yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff. So thank you so much for your time, Christina. Lovely to have you back on here. You've also started a YouTube channel. Why don't you tell everyone what your YouTube channel is?
So it's actually Christina Inc. Content Marketing once again. Just a tip, guys, social media, keep your handles the same. People are looking for one handle. They don't want to find multiple handles across different channels. So find me there on YouTube, because I actually am releasing like in-depth tutorials, social media strategy, content strategy, Amazon listing. I have a new Amazon listing optimization video, which is like a step-by-step tutorial so that you guys can learn how to do some of this stuff on your own and, boost sales, grow your reach, and build those loyal communities, which is really, should be a really big goal for 2023.
Amazing. If anyone wants to reach out to me, you can find me. I do obviously one-on-one coaching with sellers. You can find me on Sharon Evan anywhere. Just search my name, Sharon Evan, EVEN, or my website, sharonevan.com, and also my YouTube channel, Sharon Evan, which I have kind of not been updating in the last year, but I promise you, Christina and I have become accountability buddies on this one. So I promise that I'm going to get better at getting back to creating content. But for now, you guys will still see me obviously on seller sessions every week. All right, Christina, thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks for having me.